Hey, in this video, I just want to show you how to set up Event Catalog with Confluent Schema Registry, quick examples and different ways in which you can do that. So let's get started. So I have a blank repo here, blank project, and the easiest way to get set up actually is to run this command, npx create catalog, and then template, we're going to use Confluent. So I'll run this and I'll fast forward to when it's installed. Cool, now I have that installed and I have a Confluent kind of template up and running. The first thing I'm going to do is actually go to the .m file. So what you'll need to do here is actually put some API keys in. This is the Confluent Schema Registry keys. I'm actually running everything locally. You can actually run Schema Registry locally. So if you want to test this out, I recommend you do that. But I also have Event Catalog license key for Confluent Schema Registry. You can go fetch one at eventcatalog.cloud and get a 14-day trial on there and put that in. So once you have them, you can set them up. The next thing to talk about is this Event Catalog config file. This is the root of your Event Catalog. If you come down here, you'll see something called the generators, and this is the Confluent Schema Registry generator. My registry URL is localhost because, as I said, I'm running this locally, and then I'm also going to include all the versions of the schemas in my Event Catalog. Now, if I go to my registry for a second, here is an API, and here are all the subjects in my registry. You can see I have some test information. If I go to /schemas as an example, you can see I have some schemas protobuf, I have JSON and Avro schemas in here as a test, okay? So back to the code, and the next thing we're going to do is actually run the next command. So what I'm going to do is actually run npm run generate. And what this will do is actually go through and pull the schemas into Event Catalog, and that's our basic demo. But we can do much more than that. After this demo, we will also look at applying it to topics and services and domains. So let's run this command now. So what this will do now is actually go and download the schemas and actually put them into Event Catalog for us, okay? So we had in our config file that we wanted to include all the versions. So what happens now, we have an events folder. In the events folder, we have various different things going on here. We have the index.mdx file, which is the documentation, and then we also have the schema. Okay, so this is a Avro schema here. No, sorry, a protobuf schema, and this will be documented in our catalog. Now, I may as well show you what that looks like. So what I'm going to do now is run npm run dev. And what this is going to do is going to set up an event catalog on localhost so we can actually see what all this looks like. So let's go to localhost and run the catalog. And then what we can see here, we have 9 messages that are documented. If we click on there, we can actually see these are the schemas from Confluent Schema Registry, okay? So if I click on the documentation thing here, I can see there's a list of events, okay? And we can map events and we can also document commands, but as I can see here, I have some architecture diagram. Not a lot going on here at the moment, but we can actually change that and add producers and consumers and topics and channels and domains and owners and all sorts of things to our events. And equally down here, we can go down and we can see the schema. We can go to version 1 of the schema here and we can go down and view that too, okay? So all of this so far is automated and documented for you, just pointing to your Confluent schema registry. So now what happens if we want to do more? What happens if we want to document topics and we want to document producers and consumers and we want to add semantic meaning and all this kind of stuff, all the value that we can get from Event Catalog while keeping your schemas in sync with your registry. So let's have a look at how we do that next. So what I'm going to do is head back over to my editor and close this. For now, I'm just going to delete the events folder that we just generated. And I'm going to make some changes to the config file. Now I'm going to go and get an example and I'm going to paste that in here. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through what's happening here. So the first thing is we have the generator. We just did that. This is the setup. We have the schema registry URL. We're still pointing to localhost. Now I'm going to define some topics. So the topic here in Event Catalog is a channel. So what I'm saying here is that we have the orders topic and the inventory topic, and we have 2 things here. Okay, the name, and we also have an address. This is the address of the Kafka cluster in this example here. Next, we're actually going to document some services. So what we're going to try and do now is actually take our schemas and keep them in sync with the producers and consumers. Okay, so I'm going to document an orders service, and I'm going to say it's on version 1, and I'm saying it sends a bunch of events. Okay, now I'm using here. Let me zoom in. I'm actually using some filtering capabilities that this plugin actually uses. So I can say that a prefix of order. So all the schemas that are prefixed with order dash will be sent from this particular service. across this particular channel, which is a topic, okay? And we receive everything that has the same prefix of analytics over this particular topic. The next thing I do is create a new service and more producers and consumers. You can use suffix filtering, you can use absolute includes filtering, you can use exact matching, all sorts of things. And this is all documented on the website, but it's just showing you an example. And what I'm saying to Event Catalog is that these services that I want to document, I want them to be part of this domain. If the domain already exists, if the service already exists, it will ignore and not create that and just update them. Okay, so the generator manages all of this stuff for you, the plugin. Next down here, I'm doing the same thing, but I'm actually now creating another domain. So what I do is I instantiate the thing again, and I have two topics here. And what I'm going to say is I want to create a notification service. Now this time it's slightly different. I have events with exact matching. So I want to match these particular schemas, and I can say that this service now receives these types of events. And it's kind of a mix and match. You can do what you want here. But what we're trying to do here is we're trying to get the schemas from your registry and actually add some semantic meaning to them using Markdown and automating a lot of this process. And what I'm going to do down here is actually chuck that inside of the communications domain. Okay, so just to recap, we have a couple of things going on here. So what I'm going to do is open the new terminal here, and I'm actually going to run, go inside my catalog, and I'm actually going to run the generate command. Now this time what's going to happen is we're actually going to create the topics, we're going to create the domain, we're going to create the relationships between all of these things, okay? And this is all generated for you. If I run npm run dev now, and we go back to the UI, we'll see a completely different story. So let's do that now. And what I'm going to do is refresh this. And then what you can see here when this loads is now we have 2 domains, 3 services, and 8 messages, all from your Confluent Schema Registry. So if I click on the domains, I can actually see I've got communication domains and a retail domain. I can see that notification service here, it actually accepts these schemas, right? These events, we've documented them as events. You can also document your schemas as commands if you really want to. And then they, these things are going into this notification service. I can click on this and dive deeper if I want to, like dive in and out of the visualizations here, and I can actually go to the documentation too to get a better look. So what we're seeing here is the communications domain. There's the domain, and we have services and events and commands and all sorts of things. But the communications domain here, we have a bunch of documentation. This is all Markdown basically. So here we can open the domain in the visualizer, we can explore services in this domain, we have the domain architecture going on here. So the retail domain is actually more sophisticated, and we actually have a visualization representation of our Kafka topics, our services, our producers and consumers, and our schemas. If I go down here, I can actually also see what messages that this domain has. Okay, so I can actually say it receives, like this domain has events, the order created and this, and we have these events kind of going out of it. On the right here, we can see a bunch of things too, but we can also dive deeper, okay? So we can say, okay, I'm interested in the service, the order service. If I click on there, I have some links here to the Confluent Schema Registry. I can explore this in the visualizer. I have the Kafka architecture diagram, and I come down here and I can start seeing some interesting things. I can click open in visualizer. Now I'm in the visualizer, I can say, okay, well, we have these events. These events are going through the topic. The topic here is the inventory topic, okay? And it is going to the service. So we know that the event is being raised through the topic into the service as it's being received by the service. The service raises another event on Kafka, and this is the particular server, and then it's going to raise this message on there, and we know it's an event. I can right click on any of these and dive deeper. An example here is I can read the documentation of the channel itself and click on that and actually see channel information. Now everything you see here in Event Catalog is Markdown files, right? And they get persisted every time you re-import your schemas. So what I can do is actually come into this channel information, and what I can do is actually start adding some semantic meaning behind all of this and some information, some examples, code examples, all sorts of things. I can see the messages that are using this channel. As an example, I can click on these messages and dive deeper, okay? When I click on a message, I can actually see the schema of the message. This is a protobuf schema here, which is really interesting. So I can start seeing that, and I can start to basically add more semantic meaning to all of this. Now, what do I mean by this, the semantic meaning side of things? Well, let's take this, we have the order service. So let's go and have a look at the analytics event view, okay? So if I go back to the code, let's just get rid of this for a minute. And what I can do is go to the order service in domains, retail, services, orders, events, analytics event view, yeah, and then we have this index file. So this is all generated for us. We've not done anything here yet. But what we can actually start doing here is an example of how to use the message, okay? And we have a TypeScript thing, and then we can say import this, whatever else, whatever it is you want to do for your teams. If I save that now and go back to the UI and scroll down, we can actually see that that's been there. Okay, that's there, and that's really good. Now, what happens to all this markdown when we actually do it again and actually rehydrate? And this is the beauty of EventCatalog, really, is it allows you to persist these changes. So what I can do now is, okay, I'm going to generate again. So this is going to say, okay, I'm going to go back to Kafka Confluent Schema Registry. I'm going to get the latest schemas. I'm going to map them into your catalog. So there's always in sync. You'll see schemas are always in sync, but your markdown is persisted between builds. So what will happen here is the markdown, the schemas that we see, these schemas on the UI will always be in sync with your changes, but we can just see this has been persisted. If I go back to the UI and refresh, nothing has changed. We still see our information here. Now, why is this cool? Because it allows your teams to continue to use your schema registry, continue to push things and change things and all sorts of things. But it also allows you to document some of the semantic meanings behind of the schemas. And we can actually start documenting our services. Is this a Java service? Is it a Java microservice that's producing and consuming different topics, and different topics have different schemas and associated to them and all this kind of stuff. And we can start visualizing and sharing this. We can actually assign owners and all sorts of things to this. So there's much more to kind of cover and much more to dive into, but I hope that gives you an idea of what this plugin can do. If you're interested, you can actually head over to the docs. If you go to eventcatalog.dev and go integrations and Confluent Schema Registry, you can get up and running yourself in seconds. Go to install, and then you can actually go down to the installation, the plugin configuration. If you go down here, you can actually see different suffix matchings and all sorts of things and the features and some examples. Here are some examples on GitHub. If I click on here, you can actually get up and running and see how I've built these things, and you can clone these and get up and running yourselves. So I hope you found this video useful. If you've got any questions, leave a comment below, or just come onto our Discord server and ask away. So I hope you find this plugin useful in your organizations, and thanks for watching.